The General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, just in the middle of last week, released information about the liberation of a considerable territory from the Muscovites in the Oleksandrivka Novopavlivka sector of the front. We're talking about a stretch in the inner fleuve of the Haichul and Makryali rivers around the junction of three regions, Donetsk, Dnipropetrovsk, and Zaporizhia, where a group of Ukrainian troops has actually been methodically and gradually squeezing out the occupiers since the beginning of February, step by step, mainly from the 29th and 36th Combined Arms Armies of the Rashists and the 90th Tank Division in the southern, southeastern, and eastern directions. Actually, for those who watch the program Spetsnaz, operational duty officer, and the reports from TSN correspondents from the front, this didn't come as a big surprise. We have repeatedly talked about, well, within the limits of what's allowed, of course, the great work our defenders are doing in this sector, and that work is definitely continuing. But something else is notable. According to official statistics, since the beginning of the year, the Russist occupiers have seized a total of 732 square kilometers of territory in Ukraine. Then how did the Ukrainian Defense Forces liberate over 745 square kilometers since that same January of 2026? So it turns out that all those hundreds of thousands killed, wounded, and captured, the pile of burned out equipment, and the ammunition expended were, well, to put it mildly, for nothing for the Moscow headquarters. But this is exclusively dry statistics. Mr. Andriy, in your opinion, does this statistic reflect the real state of affairs at the front? I mean, to what extent did the figures of captured, liberated, and expended resources correlate with the pace, intensity, and most importantly, the initiative and advantage on the battlefield?
Look, statistics are a stubborn thing, numbers are a stubborn thing, and in reality, there is an absolute reflection in the numbers of a certain change in the status quo at the front in certain directions, certain sectors, and the key is the last one, the number of Russian soldiers who are dying per square kilometer of our territory. And when we understand that our counteractions this year were more successful in certain sectors of the front, we can also say that it is possible to talk about the fact that we managed, as of 8 months in, to truly seize the initiative in certain sectors and have a tactical advantage, particularly in that sector of the front that you mentioned. As of today, if we are talking about the Dnipropetrovsk region in Zaporizhia, the initiative at the tactical level is indeed on the side of the armed forces of Ukraine. But if you look at the whole map in general and at what is happening on the battlefield in different sectors, then in particular, the most difficult situation is indeed in the Donetsk region. It's the most difficult for us because the enemy is pushing there. You announced, actually, the situation regarding Konstantinivka, which we will talk about, and about what is happening around the Slavyansk-Kramatorsk agglomeration. And it is worth saying, for the sake of fairness, that the operational initiative is currently on the side of the Russians. So, in reality, there is a certain balance to all of this. In some places we manage to achieve something, in others we don't. And this is also a matter of the need to stretch our resources, and the Russian ones. Because if we are talking about a successful campaign in the Oleksandrivka direction, that is also a story that lasted not even half a year, not even since February. What our forces managed to do, and why I always say that this is in general a wonderful operation by the air assault forces and not just individual air assault brigades. Because in reality, the 7th Corps and the subordinate brigades did phenomenal work in the Pokrovsk direction since the fall of last year.
Actually, in fairness, the ground forces were there too, and
of course,
elements of the assault units. And that's about it.
I mean, I'm just saying that the reserves the enemy wanted to use at the beginning of this year in the Oleksandrivka direction to freeze and secure the sectors they had gained in the past, they couldn't transfer those reserves because the enemy was committing them to Pokrovsk, because the 7th Air Assault Corps was exhausting Russian forces in the Pokrovsk-Murmansk agglomeration and didn't allow them to be transferred accordingly to that sector of the front where we gained the advantage. So that's the balance. And the numbers, as of today, of course, we can look at them and feel a certain boost in morale. And this is fair, and we have the right to it, thanks to the military who, through very difficult work, blood and sweat, rebuilt and fought back these kilometers of our free land. But at the same time, it is still too early to get overconfident and talk about a major turning point on the front, about big changes, because as of today, we are about to enter the autumn-winter campaign. The enemy is looking for options, and I am more than sure that they will seek opportunities to intensify mobilization processes within Russia, because they need to replenish the losses they are sustaining.
We'll talk more about this today if that's okay.
That is how things stand.
Let's take a direct look at the configuration of the combat contact line. In the sector around Kostiantynyvka, the enemy is currently conducting an average of 25 to nearly 40 attacks every day. And it is very likely that, based on the length of the combat contact line, the number of enemy assault attempts right here in August makes it the hottest sector of the front. The grouping of Russian troops, which is based on the forces and assets of the 8th Combined Arms Army and the 3rd Army Corps, plus separate units of the 3rd, 18th, and 49th Combined Arms Armies, does not stop exerting considerable effort to completely capture Kostiantynyvka and simultaneously create a multi-level, I would say, flanking encirclement of the city and the entire agglomeration. At the smallest radius, this is effectively along the city outskirts. To do this, the main forces of the Russian 20th Motorized Rifle Division are trying to expand the territory of control north of the H-32 highway through Ilinivka, generally in the direction of Otsakov, and are simultaneously attacking the urban development on the west side of the city. Enemy infantry groups were spotted in the area of the intersection of Svobody Avenue and Belhiska Street and in the Novopavlivka microdistrict, at least east of Vernadsky Street and along Poliska Street. On the eastern flank of the territory between the H-32 highway and beyond Malachakarka, the assaults being carried out mainly by forces of the 6th Russian Motorized Rifle Division of the 3rd Army Corps. Bakhmutska and Ukrainska streets likely remain the boundary for the permanent infiltration of small enemy assault groups into the city from the east. The middle encirclement arc from the east is likely being formed by regiments of the enemy's 70th Motorized Rifle Division, which are attacking from the depths of the ruins of Chasiv Yar on both sides of Mykolaievka. Just the other day, there was information about an attempt by a group of Russian assault troops to infiltrate the gap between Shapodilske and Chervone. On the western flank, there are, so to speak, symmetrical attempts by the motorized rifle regiments of the 20th and 6th Motorized Rifle Divisions, the 8th Combined Arms Army, and the 3rd Army Corps, respectively, to break through via Rusin Yar from Stepanivka to the north towards Mykolaipilia, Dovha Balka, and Roskeshne. I'll venture to guess that the likely intended point for the enemy to converge these strike directions is on the sector somewhere between Osakov and Izhevka, south of Olekseyevo-Juchkivka. And the largest flanking maneuver, which the occupier has been trying to form particularly actively since the beginning of August, is obviously aimed at least at Druskivka, with a portion of the forces of the 8th Combined Arms Army, likely primarily by assault groups from the 102nd Motorized Rifle Regiment, and, possibly, with the support of the 163rd Tank Regiment of the 150th Motorized Rifle Division. The enemy is trying to break through from the southwest of Sofiivka along the Kazeni-Terets River through Teretsk in the direction of Raiske. At the end of last week, Russian assault troops were spotted in the area of Petrivka, and just the day before, our soldiers attacked the enemy in the area of Krasny Kut. At the same time, on the eastern flank, from the northern outskirts of Chasiv Yar itself, the enemy tries to attack every day to the northwest in the tactical zone towards Virolubivka, but clearly with a long-range aim at Druchkivka. In Kostiantynyvka itself, the situation also continues to deteriorate. A significant part of the city's territory, 70% I would say, is obviously in a gray zone that is not controlled by either side. This applies to the western and primarily the southern and eastern city districts. All of this is an area of active fighting and infiltration by enemy assault groups trying to gain a foothold among the city ruins. Ukrainian soldiers continue to hold individual blocks, particularly in the northern and central parts of Kostiantynyvka. However, the logistics there are, well, to put it mildly, incredibly difficult. Ultimately, enemy-guided aerial bombs are systematically turning the remnants of the urban development into solid, indefensible rubble. But the standoff for Kostiantynyvka, at least for now, is still ongoing. We have the opportunity to hear a few details about the development of the situation around Kostiantynyvka and on the flanks of the city. The company commander of the 2nd Mechanized Battalion of the 93rd Separate Mechanized Brigade Kolodny Yar is on the line with the studio. Special correspondent, Mr. Ole, greetings to you.
Greetings. I wish you good health.
And first of all, I would like to draw the viewer's attention to the QR code. It should already be appearing on your screens. This is a fundraiser for power banks and a charging station for the soldiers of the 93rd Mechanized Brigade. Our people, who are currently defending the routes to Zhuzhkivka and Kramatorsk and are still holding back the enemy onslaught in Kostiantynyvka, are in great need of uninterruptible power sources, so please join in and help the front if you can. Mr. Ola, returning to the situation on the battlefield, tell me, Is what's currently happening in the sector where the 93rd Mechanized Brigade is holding back the enemy still the battle for KOSTIANTYNIVKA? Or should we understand this as already being the Drushkivka direction, or perhaps even the Kramatorsk direction, possibly from the southwest?
Of course, this is still far from being the battle for Druskivka, let alone Kramatorsk. This remains the battle for Kostiantynivka, for its flanks. The enemy is using their new, now standard tactic of deep infiltration, most often taking advantage of weather conditions or the tree lines, some natural cover like ravines, to penetrate deep into our units. They start working on logistics, sowing chaos in our combat formations, but most of the time they don't succeed. The enemy that is infiltrated very deeply ends up without supplies, without communication. We detect them and destroy her. Therefore, the situation is difficult, yes, but it is under control. There is nothing new in this tactic for us in this direction. As you might recall, last year they carried out the same actions in the direction of Hruske Zolite. Therefore, the situation is difficult but under control. The enemy is being destroyed.
Sir, at the beginning of August, it became obvious that the enemy, with part of the forces of the 8th Combined Arms Army, is trying to break through from the southwest of Sofievka, that is, in a large arc through Torska in the direction of Raiska, and therefore, well, effectively towards Drushkivka. How unexpected was the appearance of the enemy in the area of the Toretsk, Krasnikut, Torske, Petrivka polygon for the Ukrainian Defense Forces? I mean, well, like this specific turn a part of the forces of the 8th Combined Arms Army here to the north.
It wasn't a surprise for us. The units knew that the enemy was building up. We were destroying them, trying to inflict maximum fire damage. But still, because they have so many reserves, so many people and resources, they managed to advance, to infiltrate our combat formation. Very often, yes. You could say they strike at the junction of units, where there is slightly worse surveillance, slightly fewer positions. Well, in principle, they sometimes succeed at this, but overall, the combat tactics are already known to us, so the enemy is being destroyed, everything is fine.
You mentioned, some individual episodes, but overall, what do you think allows the Muscovites to slip through and, well, take control, even if it's a slow process, but take control of certain tree lines and forest belts? I mean, it seems like we see everything, right? It seems like we're destroying them. Even knows, well, one, even whatever it is there. Well, this is the case where one man in the field is, well, definitely not a warrior. What allows the Muscovites to achieve this kind of gradual, methodical advance?
Well, here I will repeat myself, because we have far fewer people than they do. That's the first thing. The second thing, right now, while there is very dense foliage, they are taking advantage of this and infiltrating our combat formations. Those are the main reasons why it's turning out this way.
Tell us, to sum up, in your opinion, are these attacks from the southwest along the Kazenya-Terets River purely, how does it seem to you, an attempt to actually create a significant large encirclement of the entire Kramatorsk-Drushkivka agglomeration? Or does it seem more like an attempt to disperse the Ukrainian garrison that is defending, the Kostiantynyvka defense sector?
In my opinion, it's 2 in 1. They are trying to disperse our forces and assets because they cannot, so to speak, take Konstantinivka. That's the first thing. The second thing, yes, of course. They want to envelop our combat formations and thereby improve their situation in other directions. You can see for yourself, they are acting in a mirror image simultaneously on both the right and left flanks of Kostiantynyvka. They are stretching the width of the offensive, thereby dispersing our troops, our drones, and our equipment. Well, that is the standard tactic of the Russians.
Mr. Olev, I really...
Plus infiltration.
Yes, thank you very much for finding the time and opportunity to answer and tell us about the operational situation in the sector. Please, take care of yourself and your soldiers.
Thank you. Have a good day.